All right. You thought you could get rid of us, but we're back.
Iron Man streak continues, just a little bit hobbled, but still round on the bases.
Sorry that we missed Friday. It was totally my fault. Stuck in Nicaragua. Wi Fi is strong on the property, but power is intermittent. So went out a couple of times and Friday. And also, we just prioritized surfing, which we probably should be doing all along.
You know, sometimes when in Nicaragua, as they say, do as the Nicaraguans, prioritize surfing.
Definitely. I haven't prioritized surfing like that in some time.
Was it hard to come back to the family and then have the family as the priority?
No, I was really ready for it actually. Look, I have a pretty low threshold for satiation. So it's kind of like in a given session, 3 waves. I'm like, all right, that's good. I mean, I can go back to the boat, I can go back to the beach. I'll stay out because there's nothing else to do, but I'm sated at that
Yeah.
point. And then 5 times a day, like doing 5 sessions a day, then you're really kind of in overload territory. Then doing it 6 days in a row, I was like, what else do you want? I'm good.
Did you think your surfing improved over the course of the, I don't know, how many sessions is that? That's five a day. That's how many days? 25? Is that 25 sessions?
It would be 25 sessions to 30 sessions. Now, this is a deep topic of conversation that we could spend the whole show on. Short answer, no.
Yes. Good to hear.
It's really funny. I mean, I guess my goal isn't necessarily to improve. Ultimately, at the beginning of the trip, you're just kind of getting your feet in the wax kind of a thing, and the waves are maybe new spots, so you're getting adjusted to those things. And the way that our trip worked out was it was 3 to 4 feet the first 3 days, and then it kind of jumped to, let's say, 6 foot for 2 or 3 days. So that's the ideal way because you're just getting used to it early on. And then once the waves are good, you should be ready to go. But fatigue is also setting in at that point. So the peak, I would say, is on day 2 or 3, which didn't necessarily align with the swell to where you got your board kind of dialed and you got the spots dialed. And then the waves start pumping and you're kind of exhausted at that point.
Yeah.
And that's where it requires more energy of you. So you learn to really manage the output, manage your strain, basically.
So no
But
improvement. You
I,
weren't, you didn't like at the end, near the end, you didn't feel like, you know what? That turn had a little more oomph.
the very last session, we got kind of a dream setup. I did my worst surfing in that session, and
Was
it was
pressure on?
no pressure at all. It was just we were knowing what the swell was doing and knowing the spot we were going to. It's like, okay, the waves are going to be good. Then we get to the beach, waves are good. It's like, oh, okay, sweet. Now's the opportunity. And by the way, we had photographers with us. So we're like, now's the opportunity. Get shacked, do a big turn, whatever. And you got it on film and you got 6 days of practice leading up to this. But my body was so non responsive. Like I was actually shocked that my body was working at all at that
Yeah.
point for how little conditioning I do. But but it was working a little bit, but not enough to where it needed to be. Like I got the wave of the day came to me and it was blowing offshore winds, so that's kind of harder to get in. And I was like in position, should have just taken off. It was a right, should have just taken off, pulled into the barrel, gotten shacked and blown out. I found myself getting to my feet and I was like at the top of the wave in the lip. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't paddle hard enough.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even really catch the wave. I just got up at the top. I'm standing at the top. I'm like, all right, I guess I got to jump off from here. So I just jump off and have like a, 2 story drop, not a 2 story drop, but 6 foot drop into like the impact of the wave. But that's where your body is at that point in the trip
Yeah.
if you're not conditioned, which kind of leads to the next conversation is I just want to get fit in the off season or my off days so that I can perform in moments like that.
I mean, not that I do any great fitness routine, but at least trying to keep running sort of consistent, I feel is I mean, that's like below baseline, but but at least it is something, not nothing. Where I feel, yeah, between surfing and jogging every once in a while, I think at least but I should do more. I should have like a burpee program or something.
You can do it at home without paying for a gym in 15 to 30 minutes a day. You could actually, I think, bring yourself up to a level of, I don't know, competency for an endurance trip like Nicaragua.
I mean, I really feel your pain on that one, the not paddling hard enough, both out of exhaustion or just like, especially when it's howling or blowing offshore when you're getting the salt waters in your eyeballs. But then, like when you blow it and you know that you had an extra oomph in you, right? You know that you could have dug a little harder and you gauged it that, this wave I need to give 60% paddle strength here to get into this thing. You had 70 in you, you had 80 in you. You chose 60, boom, missed the wave.
Well, in other moments, I put in that 90% to catch the wave. And then you need more energy to get to your feet.
Yeah.
So then it's like, I kind of like, maybe in some cases I got to my feet, but then you're standing up on the wave and you're like, oh, now I need energy to surf this thing.
Yeah.
Like it is a battle of attrition in weeks like that. And in the middle of the heat, middle of the day in the heat,
Were there any standouts on the trip? Were there any listeners who came along that you thought, wow, you can surf?
Yeah. There is the best surfer on the trip. His name's Eric. He's from San Diego. He came to our Chicama trip last year. He was also the best surfer on that trip, probably. High performance shortboard ripper, and then there was another guy who's been on 3 trips now, Alex, who had vast marked improvement from previous trips.
Well, what's Alex doing? What's his secret?
So Alex, I don't know. I didn't actually ask him what his secret is, but he was always a very competent surfer. But now it was like he was charging. He was like charging and had great style. And it was like doubly as good, I think, as I remember seeing him in previous trips. So I'm not sure what program he's on at home.
How old is this, Alex?
Early 40s, I'd say.
So you're seeing hockey stick growth in the early 40s.
That's what I witnessed. I don't know. Maybe on a previous trip, I didn't see his best waves or something like that. But yeah, that's what I witnessed.
Wow, this is unheard of. I have never in all my days heard a story like this.
Well, I'll tell you what I've decided from this trip, or it just became more crystal clear to me on this trip, is that surfing isn't that hard. Like you and I have talked about, we've come to this conclusion previously. And the reason why it was so hard for us was the entry point that we got in at, which was early to mid 90s, riding the under-volumed, highly rockered shortboards, the most difficult possible board to learn on. But then also, I learned how to surf in California. You learned how to surf in Oregon, but crappy waves, basically. Sorry, I gotta shut off my text messages. Forgot to do that. Basically, we learned in marginal surf, and people might say California is not bad. It's not that good. Like, it's not powerful. You know what I mean? I mean, it gets okay. It gets decent at times. But the point is, learning how to surf in crappy waves, when you learn in crappy waves in California. You don't learn on 6-foot swell. So the contrast is, in Nicaragua, much more energy in the surf and much more open faces. So we were surfing a couple of point breaks that were head high, 300 yards long, wide open faces, and beginners were getting pushed into them. So if you're a beginner and you get onto your feet on a chest high, head high wave with a wide open face that's 300 yards long, that's a lot of practice. Going down the line, that is more practice on one wave than I got from learning in California probably in 2 months of riding waves.
I think for Oregon, it would be a solid year.
Exactly. So what I was kind of shocked by was there were beginners, well, a couple of things. The level of etiquette people observed etiquette very respectfully. So there were a lot of beginners at that spot that I'm talking about, and they even had coaches with them, like locals who are pushing them into waves. But they observed all the etiquette. They would sit wide, they would sit on the shoulder, they would only go for waves that nobody else was on. The coaches did a phenomenal job of keeping them out of the way. So when I saw those people up and riding, I noticed they were, actually surfing down the line. They were trying to do turns, stuff like that, which I did not do in my early phase of learning. The other thing was talking to some woman in the water who is from British Columbia. And it's like, she doesn't surf that often. She barely surfs in British Columbia. She mainly only surfs on trips, but she was getting waves. And once she was up and riding, she was surfing them pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think again, surfing isn't that difficult if you have energy and an open face on a wave. Your learning curve kind of is a lot faster than it was for you and I.
I wonder, though, for us, for yous and I's, if the amount of bad habit baked in from riding both crappy waves on totally wrong for the conditions boards, if all of that spoiled us, where we will never be able to read our body and the wave correctly because of just the baked in bad technique.
Our foundation, which was built over the course of a solid decade, maybe more, is rotted with termites.
Yeah.
And so the house that we're building on top of the foundation could have a beautiful facade. Yeah. I can paddle forever. I can get into the set waves. I can battle with the crowd. I can outposition. I could take off late. I could take off steep. But once I'm up and riding, it ain't pretty.
It is what it's just rotted. It is so true. It's fun. I mean, yeah, it's a bummer because I wonder, there should be, Brad Gerlach, if you're listening with your wave key, and maybe this is already part of your wave key, is completely demolishing the structure, right? That's what I need. I need to go back to zero. I need to start with the pop-up, and I know Brad does that. But then from there to what are the steps? Where did I miss? How can I redo my termite infested structure?
Yeah, that's the only program that I've seen really address all of this and rebuild it in a really, I think, proficient way.
I wonder with I know in the ballets, coaches won't want students with bad training, right? Like after a certain amount of years of bad training, you're done. You're done. You're never going to be able to undo, or all of those bad habits are so baked in that they're never going to go away. Is that us?
No, those teachers, I would bet, are just focusing on the top 1% of athletes. That's what they do. And so you would just have to find a coach who's focused on taking you from lower intermediate to middle intermediate.
Okay. You're right. That's it.
So back to your original question about my own surf ability on the trip. There was one session midway through the trip when the swell hit, probably the first day of the swell, where we had a really magic afternoon. Honestly, one of the best sessions I can remember having in a long time, where we surfed this point break on a certain tide before lunch. And because I was conserving energy, I waited in the boat. It was super crowded when we showed up. So I'm like, I'm just going to wait. Everybody else surfed for an hour. And then I'm like, all right, I'll go out there and just get a couple of waves, fight the crowd. And I got 3 waves in a short period of time that were pretty incredible. Set waves, long, whatever, where I really got to kind of feel the mojo. Then we went back to the boat, had lunch, came back, and then we had a 3+ hour window at that spot where the tide was even better and it really turned on and it was super glassy. And I literally got a dozen waves that were just I can end on this. I could go home after this. But I got nowhere to go, so I'm going to paddle out and try again, and boom, get another one. And I got a dozen of them. And the 4 or 5 people that I was surfing with all were having the same kind of banner session for themselves. So this is where the kind of endurance was still intact and my body felt good to where I could do what you were asking about, which is get set up and riding, bottom turn, go into a top turn and be like, that was pretty good, but I think I could do it better.
Yeah.
So I go into another bottom turn and then get another section that looks identical, do it even better, and then come back. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I should bank off the whitewash on the next one. So then I get a third turn and now I bank off the whitewash. Then I'm like, okay, that was kind of sick. Fourth turn, bank off the whitewash, then go into a bottom turn and then go into another,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay. And then the wave is that long that you can think it through. You can make the adjustments. Your body is still responding. Then you kick out and you're like, that was so much fun. Can I do it again? You paddle back out, get another one. And that one's even better than the first one,
Those waves in life, which again, I'm a Southern California surfer. And again, I know there's a lot places worse than here. And I'm lucky and love it and blah, blah, blah. But very rarely will I catch a wave where I'll have time to actually think about what I want to do. Like I'm just doing it, right? I'm racing this section. It's all instinct because it's like not a perfect wave. Like, so I'm racing this section to get to that section, but I haven't thought about what I'm going to do when I get to that section. So I get to, I get around whatever, and then I'm there and then I'm like, oh, and I do the same silly thing every time. Right. Whereas it's those rare times when you have enough time and you can see down the line and think, what am I going to do with this?
I'm 100% in the same boat. And I would say I've gone years doing what you said without actually thinking about what I want to do on the wave, just going through by rote, basically. And even on this trip, I was in that default for 2 days.
Yeah.
Even though I had opportunities to think about it, my body was just responding out of routine. And so it took 2 or 3 days. Actually, we talked about this a little bit on the trip, which is everything's happening in slow-mo there. The waves are happening in slow-mo despite having more energy because it is open face and it's longer. You can actually slow yourself down and think through the motions. Go ahead.
I mean, it's that hyperactive Southern California, or probably anywhere you surf that's not like perfect waves, right? I'm just like, it's hyperactive. It's just like go, 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 go. Like, where you don't need it there. You don't need any hyperactivity.
No, exactly. It's really refreshing. And also, so all of that coupled with having a week where you're just focusing on surfing, where surfing is the only priority. And again, internet was down or power was down intermittently. So it was kind of like, I'm supposed to be podcasting. I'm either supposed to be prepping for a podcast, recording a podcast, or publishing a podcast. Can't do any of that. So I guess I'll just go surfing again or think about surfing again or whatever, work on surfing again. And that became, I didn't realize how much I need it until I got home and realized how restored I felt and how much more grounded and centered I felt again, to where I'm like, man, I really need to make sure I do this once or twice a year, almost in perpetuity, because it's essential for my functioning at home.
It's so easy to slip into the mindset that you don't need it anymore, that it's only in the way, that it's, oh, well, this dang surfing, if only I didn't have surfing, it's this crappy habit that I have that I gotta kind of do sometimes. But no, it is really, truly essential. But it's so easy to fall into the mode of just, man, I wish I didn't surf.
Well, the mode that I fall into is just balancing my life. I put surfing as like, okay, 45-minute session, 3 or 4 days a week. I'll just fit it into my life. It's balanced. Doing that is still not the same as carving out a week and just going all in and pushing yourself to the brink of, exhaustion or your performance ability or whatever. Like that, it's like fasting. It's the opposite of fasting. You know what I mean? Where it's just a total reset for your body.
Love it. Well, jealous.
Yep. Well, you'll be in Morocco at some point, so you can have your opportunity too.
To just feast on waves.
We'll move on. I had another thought, but we'll move on. By the way, we didn't say it at the top 20 minutes ago, but we're going to give you an abbreviated show today, slightly abbreviated. We usually go 90 minutes. This will be shorter. We're making up for lost time, but we also have extra fine grit to record. So if you want the extended cut, go over to Extra Fine Grit on Patreon and join us there. So beachgrit.com published an article about Prince Harry. Raimana did an interview with somebody, and he was basically raving about his relation. He was saying his relationship with Prince Harry is more of a friendship. It's tighter than you might have expected from their limited exposure, but he was actually giving Harry rave reviews as a human being.
I mean, yeah. Do you doubt?
No, I was going to ask you, did Raimana, since you hold Raimana in such high regard, did this endear you more to Prince Harry?
Of course. I mean, so the problem with Raimana is, it could be argued that if you're looking for a chink in Raimana's perfect armor, it would be that he is too good. He doesn't have a bad bone in his body, and so I think he will see the good in everyone or anyone, right? Like, so I could see Mark Zuckerberg going and hanging out with Raimana, and Raimana just saying, you know, he's a great guy, but maybe not. I think Raimana and Zuck have done surf ranch stuff, and you don't see Raimana touting Zuck. He's done a lot of crappy ones, and you don't see him really touting him. You never see him talk negatively.
Well, you also never see him say that they've become friends.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they, quote, became friends would be an indicator of Harry's character.
Yes, but also imagine you're Harry. I mean, and where I will fully credit Harry is being able to see the angel walking on earth that is Raimana van Bastolear, right? Like, you're Harry. You've got to be one of the most jaded people on earth. Of every single person you've ever met since the point you were born, since you came out of the womb, probably has an angle, right? Like, your entire family is an angle. Everyone who meets you, every friend, every person along the way has an angle. Then you meet Raimana, who's got no angle. Like, what are you going to give Raimana that Raimana doesn't already have, right? If you're Prince Harry. So, and all of a sudden now Raimana's the one gifting, right? He's learning surf, he's learning the ocean, whatever he's learning. So it feels to me like Harry, what a breath of fresh air Raimana would be for a Prince Harry.
Well, for anybody not tracking the full storyline here, the reason this is relevant is that they met at Surf Ranch with Prince Harry getting forced into barrels by Raimana. So presumably he's embraced surfing. And I would argue, or I would say, welcome, brother. The water is warm. Come on in.
Welcome, Prince Harry. Those, the lickings the royals take. It's like, I don't know what let's lick a royal, and by lick, I mean hit with a stick. Like, it seems like Page Six and all of these are invested in tearing them down, and that goes beyond just clickbait stuff, right? Like, where I guess Meghan Markle is an easy villain, I suppose, and they've just got the teeth in, and obviously, like, trashing on Meghan Markle leads to clicks, and so everybody just keeps on doing it, right? But yeah, it just seems overly vicious.
Yeah, I understand the dynamic, and I think that actually bolsters the royals having that adversarial relationship with the tabloids. It bolsters them in a certain way, but I personally could not care less about the royal family. I think it's absurd that they even collect revenues off the people. But whatever, it's not my country. I'm also think it's absurd that any British people care about the royals. All that being said, it's shocking that Harry has turned out as well as he has based on that upbringing. From what I've seen when he does do interviews, he seems shockingly well adjusted. And the fact that he actually has a beef with his family and has chosen the path that he does, I think shows that he thinks it's absurd too.
Yeah.
And he just wants to live a normal life, and he's picked a wife that is outside of, the expectation that allows him kind of to have some more normalcy. And they've I kind of admire their decision making.
Yeah, I mean, I see nothing wrong with it personally. It doesn't seem like Harry. I mean, maybe Meghan a little bit more, but it seems like her business is whatever Netflix or as ever, whatever her brand is. So she has to be forward facing. But doesn't ever seem like Harry is rubbing our faces in his self like the Kardashians do.
Yeah, no, I agree. If anything, he's trying to shirk the limelight.
Yeah.
So good on Harry. Congratulations on your friendship with surfing's most lovable teacher, surf
Picked
coach.
a winner. Picked a winner. Has.
I'll make a note too that the Margaret River event is going on right now, but we're not going to discuss it until maybe Friday. It's in the middle of the event. They have 2 days off scheduled. Opened with a bang. We talked about it a little bit last week, but let's save that conversation about the event recap till later in the week, maybe when they finish the event.
Great idea. Man, though, can you, just to tease, is it Weinstein that's cursing the World Surf League? Like, yeah, they had a good day opening at Margaret River, right? But then just, oof, rough. And I don't know what's coming at the end of the forecast, but it doesn't seem good. I read that they are going to miss epic swell, like perfect snapper swell by a couple days. Bells was obviously unchill. It just feels like they can't catch a break. And I suppose, where would you put day one of the Margaret River Pro in like the pantheon of great WSL days? I know it was the longest in WSL history. They ran more heats than they'd ever run in a single day. But where would you say it was like, yeah, that was like J-Bay circa 2010 or whatever?
No, not even close. I would put it right in the middle. Like
Yeah.
there's been way more crappy days, of course, but it will not rank in one of the great days. It was big and challenging, which makes it fun to watch, but it was not a great day.
I was wondering myself as I was watching, because I was thinking, wait a second, am I just so jaded that I'm looking at this as, enjoyable to watch and definitely big waves and the surfers are definitely being challenged? But I was like, this doesn't even like crack the top 50 best days in pro surfing history.
Definitely not. No, it doesn't crack the top 50. It doesn't even crack maybe the top 10 at Margaret River.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say for sure it doesn't.
The years that John developed that crazy frontside down carve, those days stood out as better. The one that I remember the best would have been 2017 or 18. Jay Davies was in the event, and he got like a 10-point ride on a stand-up barrel on the right. And then the very next heat, I think Kelly Slater got another one. Like literally like stand-up barrel on the right, which you never see out there. That day was like perfection.
Man,
So,
but back to Weinstein. Like it feels like this is now, and I'm not wrong in thinking this, right? I'm not just looking at the glass half full. Like last year there was what, maybe 5 heats in good waves, more than that, but very few good days, right?
at the end of the year, you could probably say there was 4 half days that were like excellent, excellent.
And this year, again, starting off where it seems like they're going to miss Snapper too, right? I mean, seems like, unless I don't know if there's a swell
So
backing in after that one.
yeah, the long range forecast, it's too difficult to tell with any accuracy, but basically there's prediction that there's snappers going to be pumping just before the event window starts. So we don't know what will transpire after that, but we do know it should be good right before the event.
Yep, classic World Surf League.
So I don't know, how does Weinstein factor into this, or why is he to
It
blame?
just feels like there's a golem, right? It feels like there is a cursed figure. It's like the Brady Bunch tiki necklace, where everything's, you have to get rid of the tiki necklace at some point. There's, all the films where somebody brings the evil totem into the house, and you've got to go bury that thing, right? So does somebody need to off Harvey Weinstein in prison for the World Surf League? A surfer, I mean. Does a surfer have to, or maybe not even off him, maybe, does a surfer have to do something with Harvey Weinstein in order for there to get good waves back to the World Surf League Championship Tour?
Two thoughts. First of all, in terms of penance that Weinstein needs to pay, I don't think he needs to be offed. I think he needs to have done to him exactly what he perpetrated on his victims in jail.
By a surfer.
But nope, by the other prisoners.
I mean, sure, but I think I think a surfer has to go to Rikers and get busy with Harvey Weinstein in order for there to be waves of quality back on the championship tour.
Okay. So that needs to happen. Yes, I agree. That would make things a little bit more just in the world. Actually, because he was the original perpetrator, I think it needs to happen twofold to him to make up.
So two surfers.
So, two surfers. Lots of essay on him to make things right in the world. Now, as it relates to the WSL, no. The problem is the bloated structure. So I've said it a million times before. I will say it a million times again. All of this can be solved with a smaller tour that can run in one swell. And we already got the swell. The event would already be over. We could have run everything in good waves. The only problem is the tour is 3 times too large.
It's true. That is true. But also, maybe Dirk Ziff has like a little memento from Weinstein somewhere in his office. And we need to go find that and bury it too.
I could see that like a voodoo doll situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, burying is not enough. We got to perpetrate the exact same crimes against him. I want nothing to do with it other than to share the idea. I'll let the prisoners at Rikers do their thing.
Find the surfing prisoners at Rikers and go at it.
Well, I want to revisit or go through some of the rules that you posted on beachgrit.com with the etiquette sign that you found. Where did you find the surfing rules etiquette sign that is posted at a beach somewhere?
I was sent it so many times. You know when you get DM'd something so many times, and the first time I think I didn't pay much attention to it. I surfing etiquette sign. And then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then I started reading it, and I was like, why do people keep sending this to me? Is it because it's good or bad, or because I'd have to think it's good, or are they sending it to me because people are disagreeing in the comments, which I never quite found out. But yeah, I read it seriously, but I only saw it. I don't even know where it's posted. I only saw it on the Instagram.
Well, so I've seen similar signs at various places, and I want to say I even saw one at Popoyo in Nicaragua. I think they had something similar. Anyways, the sign, you'll see it occasionally at surf breaks, and this says surfing rules. Actually, you know what? Let me just pull it up on the screen real quick so that listeners...
This one was more detailed, for sure, than most surfing rules signs I see posted at beaches.
Yeah, look, I think it's easy to say this is a good thing, but I think you and I have more to discuss here.
Yep.
Surfing rules. 1 wave equals 1 rider. No shoulder hopping. Always respect the locals. No ditching your board in the biggest print. No beginners except escorted by a local who will keep them out of the way. Locals always have priority. Not a local, wait your turn and go to the end of the very long line. If you are a beginner or barely intermediate surfer, please consider surfing elsewhere for your safety and for the safety of everyone else. When your skills improve, come back and get in line. Any violation of the above rules, and you may be asked to leave by a local. If that happens, don't cry and complain like a little bitch. Just go away and come back when you understand the rules. Thank you, the management.
Yeah, I don't think this is all... Like, I have a bone to pick with this one.
What's the bone?
Well, the bone is the elevation of a local above somebody who rips, right? Like, nobody wants, I don't know, jerky, egotistical rippers coming in and taking all the waves. But if you rip and you know your way around the lineup, then I don't think you have to be all crazy town bowing down at all the locals. A local who sucks and is blowing every takeoff and you rip, then you burn that local.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about surfing is it is the ultimate meritocracy.
Yeah, but so this one elevates the local, but if a local is on a soft top and sucks, then it's not the same.
Fair enough. I think that's good. The major issue that I have with this, and probably with most of these signs, is it requires self assessment, realistic self assessment, for you to put yourself in either the role of the local or the beginner or the intermediate.
Yep.
And nobody's self assessment is accurate in surfing.
Nope.
Everybody overestimates their ability level and probably their own local status too.
Exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. Like the local guy who's been, or the guy who's been there for 15 years thinking he's a local, the guy who was born there thinking he's a local, the guy whose great grandparents were born there thinking he's a local. Like those guys work that out, I suppose. But the guy who's, what makes you a local? And there's so many people who think they're a local because they've lived somewhere for 5 years.
Right.
And they know enough. Like if they're surfers, typically, I think the local claimer won't necessarily claim in public that he or she is a local, but they feel it. And that's where they act like it, which is the problem.
And that's where, with this sign saying locals always have priority, true statement, or that's an etiquette that should be applied everywhere in the world. But the problem is, if you think that you're a local because you've been there 15 years and the other guy knows he's a local because his grandfather pioneered the place, that creates tension in the lineup, So the rules need to be a little bit more objective, I would say.
Yeah. Subjective.
No, I think objective.
Open to interpretation, the rules need to be.
These are too open to interpretation.
Oh, so you want to, okay, so you want to, yeah, I hear you. Okay, get it. So there needs to be more objective, but do we really want then to spell out local equals? But also then the sub tier of the suck local. Like there are locals that suck, right? There are locals that have been there forever that suck. And where do they are, on the ranking, where I think the surfer who's better, you shouldn't burn the local who sucks, but you have equal status in the lineup with the local who sucks.
This sign was clearly written by locals.
Yeah.
Or people who thought that they were locals. Because when I say objective, I mean the rules need to be well thought out enough to not allow for any questions about who you are in this. Like there's just rules that apply. The no ditching your board rule, that's objective. That's a great rule.
I mean, if you ditch your board, ditching board has become such an epidemic, but more on that later. I think you and I can do a real service for surfing right now. I think we can actually define local. I think Hawaii takes it too far. I'm going to let them be Hawaii, but Hawaii takes it a bit too far. What constitutes a local, right? You got your Jamie O'Briens and your John Florences and all of these guys who won't claim local status, even though they were born on the island because they're not Hawaiian, right? That's a separate issue, but I think that's too much. If you're born somewhere, you're a local. Agree?
Sure.
Like making this generational gets silly. Like the La Jolla person who's like, yeah, but my, great granddad built La Jolla style, so I'm more local than you. No. Local should be, there's no variation in local, I don't think. There shouldn't be. A local is a local, period.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. So if you're born somewhere, local. How long do you have to live somewhere to be a local? Are you ever a local? Because this seems silly too. If you spend 50 years somewhere, I'm going to say you're a local. 50 years.
Yeah, 50 years. I can't argue against 50, especially if there's a 30-year-old who was born there, but they've only been surfing it for 30 years, and you've been surfing it 20 years longer than them.
But so I'm going to say, though, 50 years at a place makes you a local. Now, does 25 years at a place make you a local?
Yes.
Okay.
Less local than somebody who's been there longer.
Okay, so if you've lived, but I'm just going to say, can you call yourself a local and act like a local and not go burn other locals? But are you a local? 25 years.
Yes, 25 years, I think, is the minimum number.
Okay, so we've landed on it. I feel we've landed. So if you live somewhere 25 years, you can claim local. Now, you can't go beating your chest about how local you are. That's silly, right? You're always going to have moved there. what is it in Hawaii? Flew here, not blew here. Grew here, not flew here. Grew here, not flew here. You have always flown there, not grown there. And there is a difference, which doesn't really need to be discussed. It's just bad form if you're chest pounding, locals only style 25 years in. But you're a local.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I think that now that I'm actually thinking about it, I think the signs should exist with like a 10 commandments kind of a thing, but the number one commandment actually supersedes all the others. So, and the local thing wouldn't be the number one commandment.
No.
Like respecting others in the lineup, let's say, might be somewhere near number one. Not ditching your board might be number two. One rider per wave is on this thing. Let's say that's number four. Locals always have priority might be number five.
Yeah.
So what that means is if you're a local, you still have to abide by rule number one, which is respect everybody else. You also have to abide by rule number four, which is one rider per wave. So even though you're a local, that person's up and riding and they're a stranger, you can't just burn them.
Yeah.
You are local, which means you should have priority, but that person actually got the wave first. You're on the shoulder. You can't burn with impunity simply due to the fact that you are a local. That's rule number five.
Completely agree.
So,
and if you have beef with the blow-in getting good waves, then you've got to paddle. Like if that person, the non-local, is in a better position than you, that's on you. And then now we're back to surfing as a meritocracy when it works best.
So that's the way that the rules need to be structured, is with an acknowledgement of the meritocracy and then building out the rules that way. But number one, I think, should be respect other surfers in the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, self-awareness, respect and be self-aware out in the lineup.
Yeah. Local or blow-in.
Everyone.
You need to respect other people in the lineup, period. Yep. And that's no ditching your board actually falls under that rule, because ditching your board is not being respectful to the person behind you.
Disrespectful.
Yeah. There's other, I'll just bring this up because I have a story related to it in Nicaragua, but I've seen other scenarios or other rule lists that indicate like always paddle towards the shoulder, always paddle towards kind of, or stay basically in the channel. Or if there's a surfer up and riding, do the opposite, paddle towards the impact zone to stay out of their way. I had a situation where I did the exact wrong thing on that final session, actually, when I was super exhausted as well. But a buddy of mine who I've surfed with enough to know like kind of what he's going to do, took off on the craziest right, like barrel opportunity. I'd actually gotten the first wave, so I was kind of on the inside on the impact zone on like first wave of the set. Come up from the water, second wave of the set, he's in perfect position, but he's goofy foot and it's going to be backside. And I'm like, in order for him to kind of do this perfectly, he's going to have to knife this drop, and he's on a bigger board. And I think what he's going to probably do is like drop in straight and then bottom turn and try to make it up into the barrel, but there's no way he's going to knife this thing. So I'm going to paddle towards the shoulder because the wave is running super fast. And I know like he has to do everything perfectly to make the super fast section, and I can make it and duck dive into the fast section of the wave. And he's probably going to bottom turn, go to the bottom turn, and then I'll be clear out of his way. But if I paddle towards the impact zone and he does exactly what I think he's going to do, then I will be in his way. So I got to beeline it over the shoulder of this thing, right? Dude, he knifed the drop flawlessly. Like knifed into the barrel stance, like pig dog stance, pulls up into the thing. And I'm just like, oh, shoot. And there's so little time to do anything. He's coming full speed, like a cannonball, right at me. Ultimately,
a horrible feeling.
It was the worst feeling ever. But I was like, I was so psyched. I was hoping he would do the right thing and do exactly what he did, because it was an insane wave and an insane line that he had to make, and he freaking did it, you know?
What did you do? I was how did you get yourself out of the waves?
I duck dove him, which is not something you could put on a sign, But it's like I've been in this situation before where normally what you're going to want to do is you're going to duck dive your wave, duck dive the wave, meaning the apex of your duck dive is angled in such a way to with the impact of the wave, the biggest impact. You're trying to get under that concussion of water. Instead of that, it's duck diving the person, and then you might end up coming up in the concussion of the wave instead, you know? But I know I've duck dove enough in my life, 30 years worth of duck diving. I know I could duck dive under anybody. You know what I mean? Like
You're not
you just have,
wincing down there? Every once in a while, like what percentages of your duck dives are mangled?
like not executed properly.
Yeah, like you either didn't go deep enough or you got, you know, you didn't push the tail down hard enough or your hands slip at the nose and, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
like all the variety of things that go
Maybe
on.
5%.
5% wrong. Okay, I'm probably 20% wrong on my duck dives.
Really?
Probably.
Wow. No, I mean, I'm 5%, and it's really a matter of like if it's a 10 wave set and you're on wave 8 or 9 and you're like, should I paddle one more stroke or duck dive now, you know, kind of a thing. That's where I make the mistakes. But when your life is on the line and there's a giant dude coming right at you, you
You
don't
go
mess
deep.
up.
I mean, I suppose what were you riding too? I suppose my duck dives are worse when I'm riding like weird shapes and or
Yeah, I was riding a
headwinds.
6 foot shortboard.
Oh, easy then, no problem.
I'll send you the video. I don't have the video on me, but I'll send you. Actually, I might have the video on me.
Oh,
So I could
sweet.
pull it up real quick. We could review the footage.
Can we air it?
Yeah, we could air it. Yeah, it was sketchy. But I knew also, like I knew I could duck dive under him. So I wasn't too stressed about it. But I was just hoping he would hold his line, you know, and do what he needed to do.
Did he get out at the end? Did he get spat out?
No, he actually got detonated by the lip right where I was duck diving. So like I think he might have been kind of focused on me as well,
Yeah,
and maybe like lost focus, but the lip, he didn't get into the tube. He just kind of like
got
was
lit.
right next to it, and then it detonated him. All right, I could pause or I can cut dead air while I'm downloading this. All right, you ready?
Yes. Hold on. I'm putting the glasses on. I want to get full vision. Oh, that looks
I mean,
fun.
that's a sick wave, right? It's like a head high, right?
Yep.
All right, here we go. And you'll see me paddling out right towards the end of it. So knifes in beautifully off the bottom, tries to pull in. There I am.
Oh yeah. Boom. Okay. Let's go
So
frame by
he,
frame.
yeah, so ultimately it was barreling at the takeoff. He kind of went around
Oh,
that and then
you
tries to
really were
pull.
in a when you were explaining it, I thought there's no way that you would have been in his way if you cut to the impact, but you fully would have been.
Yeah. So he tries to pull in right where I'm duck diving, but it's not barreling at that point anymore. So he just like forces himself into the lip, and that's what knocked him off his board. But
That
I
is a
was
that is a tough, 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 horrible spot to be though.
so when I see him taking off right here, I'm like, he's gonna
You can't
like,
paddle toward the impact zone. You're too far over anyway.
I'm way too far over. And I'm like, he's gonna drop straight in right here. And then the wave's gonna run off, and I think I'll be safe. But instead, he grabs the rail, and look at that angle.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, there's no way he's taking that line, but he freaking nailed it,
Dude.
you know? And then he
Oh,
kind of comes off the bottom, and there I am. I'm like, oh, shoot, he's making this thing. I should have been paddling
yeah.
the other way.
That is a brutal. It's a good duck dive. Did you
Got
hit him
under him.
though? Are you sure you didn't hit him? It's all
No,
very sus. Where he
we
comes
did not.
off and where you duck dive.
No, we did not hit. He came up immediately, looked at me, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, are you okay? If he was riding a single fin and it was like an 8-inch single fin, it might have been a little more sketch.
Oh man.
How good is
Yeah,
that wave though?
that is a straight up horrible feeling though. Like being the one paddling out and having no clean option.
Yeah. How good is that wave?
So good. Man,
Super good.
fun.
Super good final session.
Yeah.
Anyways, shout out. I don't know if he wants me to share his name or not, but epic wave, epic
Yeah.
ride.
Good
So well
look.
done. Well surfed. My bad. Let's see what else. Again, we're running late. This was supposed to be an abbreviated show. Let's go to commercial break, and then I have some listener feedback, and then we can go to Barrel or Not to close it out.
Great.
All right, Chaz, welcome back from break.
That's a good
We
one.
have a listener email that came to both you and I weighing in on the listener line call from last week about us being pretentious douches. Us being, that wasn't the wording. It was more elitist, I think.
Yeah. It was thinking that we were blue collar where we ain't.
So the listener's feedback to the call says, Chaz and David just wanted to weigh in on the call from the gentleman who expressed the sentiment that you gents are more or less elitist. The general idea being that because you talk about caviar and wine and exotic surf trips to places like Yemen, that you are a little too bourgeois and that it's off-putting. While I see where the caller is coming from, I have a different take. I think we need to distinguish between full-on yuppies, those who have their means, or those who come from means and don't know anything different, and working folk who have, through their toiling, been exposed to high culture. As an example, David having worked in wine, thus developing a palate for fine vintages. His father didn't own a chateau in Sancerre or Napa. He worked his way into the world of fine-aged grape juice. There exists today a huge class of people, especially in places like New York or California, who are effectively broke, or nearly so, but because they're around a lot of wealth, they are exposed to the finer things in life and begin to adopt some of those fine customs into their lifestyle. Usually this comes about directly as a result of working for those who have the wealth. I count myself among one of these types. Quote, California poor, I call it. I've worked in high-end restaurants as a bartender in New York and LA, and in beautiful homes all over Los Angeles as a carpenter. I don't have a 401k, but I do know what great food tastes like and can appreciate good design. And I surf the golden sand beaches of Southern California nearly every day. And I've worked with countless people in both professions, many of them still recent immigrants, who have developed a certain taste for fine things while still holding on to their working man or woman traditions. Finally, I would point to one Mickey Dora as the best example of this. He may even be the very genesis of the California poor lifestyle. DeCat never had a steady income, but always found a way to dress well and eat like a king, and he certainly took his share of exotic surf trips. Anyway, I don't want to belabor this point, but that call brought up some interesting thoughts that are worth exploring about our modern society, especially as it exists near the coast. Greg in Santa Monica.
Greg, thank you. Here. Couldn't have said it better.
Any further thoughts on the call or that or your own lifestyle?
No, I think Greg really hit it out of the park, right? Like that exposure. I mean, Greg said it all. Exposure to fine living, and an appreciation of it, right? And also a curiosity about it. I think that's what it is a lot. I think anybody could be exposed to it and have zero curiosity, right? Like rich people stuff, don't want it, ain't interested. I've always had, not for rich people stuff per se, and I don't know where it came from. I wasn't raised with like this, always be curious about the finer life, right? But I've always been curious about it from reading, F. Scott Fitzgerald on up. Like, I wonder what that's like.
100%. Yeah. I also was reflecting on the call last week, and I was thinking, isn't the listener's fault or the caller's fault. It might be my fault in communication, but I always thought that I was communicating from the point of the blue collar worker just trying to get by, who's dabbling in these finer things. I didn't think that I was communicating from the position of somebody who pays for those luxury items regularly and gets to experience them. I thought it was crystal clear that I am just the beneficiary of the generosity of others often.
Absolutely. I mean, talk about back to the local conversation. I am such a blow-in when it comes to any kind of finer anything. I mean, I am California. Was it California poor?
Yeah.
I am California poor as anyone. But yeah, it's just and would never, ever posit as a local in fine living land.
The other thing, though, that I think you've kind of brushed on, and Greg did too, is the finer thing. Time is the ultimate luxury in life. The finest things in life are actually free or cheap. And like the finest foods that you and I have ever discussed, an Italian tomato with mozzarella and olive oil is cheap.
Yep.
Like the best food experience I've had are not fine dining at all. It's street tacos in Mexico. You know what I mean?
And so, a great slice of pizza in New York.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I think that is my true north always. And then if you do it, if you navigate life correctly, you get to partake in those things regularly. And if you prioritize, again, the idea that time is the ultimate luxury, then you have free time to partake in those things. And then occasionally, of course, New Year's, for example, I'll go on quince.com/surf and buy caviar because it's once a year and really try to experience what that's like. And ultimately what you realize is through supply and demand and certain market pressures, certain things are expensive now, but they used to be peasant food, probably. Like the eggs from a fish were probably peasant food at some point, you know? When I was a kid, salmon was dirt cheap and trout was expensive.
Yeah.
And for some reason now salmon's expensive and trout is cheap. I don't know why, you know? So there's just things that are beyond our control that tend to dictate what people deem as being luxury at a given time in life. But you can enjoy the luxuries of everyday life, again, if you just have some level of discernment and care. But the idea of I'm poor and therefore I'm just not going to participate in the luxury, I think is a misstep.
Yeah, that's totally true.
I've been poor plenty, and I got to surf tons during that time and drink and eat, you know?
Yep.
So there's ways to do it. Go spend time in Baja. That's one way to do it.
Oh man, speaking of, I saw over on Noble Rock, we talked about salads yesterday. Caesar's Restaurante is still there in Tijuana. So for those who did not listen to Noble Rock, you can go on over. But the Caesar salad, invented in Tijuana, Mexico, a place called Caesar's Restaurant. They serve beef Wellington. It's like classic old school American food.
Can't wait to go.
I know, Caesar's, can't wait either.
Although I bet what has happened is he invented it, but he's not the best at it.
Could be, except for I had a couple people message or comment and say they've been, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, right along, so the conversation we were just having fits perfectly in with TJ because I think it was a seminal experience for me in my late teens, early 20s. My family had a place in Baja, and maybe that already defines me as of a certain class. Now I think about it.
Our third home.
Yeah, exactly. It was cheap. It was super cheap. Anyways, I was working at a restaurant 3 days a week, and I would as a server, and I would make about $100 a shift. So I'd make $300 a week. They offered me more work, but I didn't want to work more than 3 days a week. But what I would often do is in those 4 days, go down to Baja, stay at the place for free, of course, surf and eat fish tacos and lobster at Puerto Nuevo. And it was like, that's all I need is $300 a week. And by the way, if I go to Baja, it's cheaper. Cause like if I stayed home in California during those 4 days, I would run out of my $300 in those 4 days. I'd come back from Baja with an extra $100 in my pocket. You know,
Yep.
It was cheaper to go on vacation and eat and surf in Baja than it was to live at home.
Yep. Fine living.
Fine living, dude. Some of the best days, actually.
Yep.
All right, final. Let's go to barrel or nah. Final segment of the show. Barrel or nah. Buying a fake watch. Of course, never a veyor, but I've been spending time in Hong Kong for work in recent years, and there's a sizable gray market for luxury watches that are shockingly cheap. It's fairly well accepted that these are, quote, super clones, Really well-made knockoffs made with quality materials to exacting specs, but they're 1/10 the price of the real deal. Probably because they're not made in Switzerland, among other things, of course. I certainly can't tell the difference, and I've heard that these dupes can even fool the experts. So barrel or nah, buying a fake Rolex. It's still $1,000, but the real deal would be closer to 15,000. I'm on the fence.
Man, tough one. I say no barrel because you'll always know that you're flexing for something that you're not there yet, right? If you want a Rolex, if this is like peak goal, get a Rolex, then figure out how to get a Rolex, right? There's ways to do it and all that, and you make it your mission. But you'll know every time you look at your fake Rolex that it's a fake Rolex and that you are a fraud. You internally are a fraud. And I as much as, you think, well, value for anything is only, it's all inflated and weird. It's not like Rolex actually spends, $10,000 worth of material on the watch plus whatever, that obviously you're paying for the name. And so but I think for everything, you should wear the watch, the shoes, the luxury kind of thing that you're going to splurge on that you can afford, right? Like the top of your level, and then try to push beyond that, right? But I always think it looks better seeing a woman in the grocery store with a Louis Vuitton bag. You can, rude to say, but generally you could suss out fairly quickly if it's fake or, the Louis Vuitton is so ubiquitous, like everybody's. But so I think, okay, you got a fake Louis Vuitton bag. I don't judge them anymore, but I'm aware of it. I'm aware that this is a person who buys something fake.
Yeah, I agree with you in that the problem for me is lying to yourself.
Yeah. It's not,
Like
I don't care about the others.
everybody, a lot of people are going to lie to you in your life. You don't need to lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you do buy into the Rolex brand and you value that and that is something that you want to spend your money on, then there's only one way to get it. Like I personally don't buy into any of it. I don't care about it. But if you do and you value it, lying to yourself that you've leveled up to that area only hurts you. And you're right. You're right. Nobody else can figure it. Like presumably you buy the best super clone, quote unquote, then people won't identify it like you can identify the Louis Vuitton bag. But that's neither here nor there because you know, and you cheated the system. You know what I mean?
But even with the Louis Vuitton bag, it's not that I'm looking at the Louis Vuitton bag, the fake, because those bags are quality fakes now. I don't know that the bag's fake. I'm looking at the person saying this person does not own a Louis Vuitton. Same with this guy. And this is neither here nor there because it's about lying to self. But I will look at him and say, this guy doesn't own a Rolex. Yeah. You can tell. You can look at the person and know. And so then you have the secondary question. Well, why are they wearing a fake? And
yeah. And the third question is, why do you value this name brand so much that you're willing to lie to yourself to present to the world that you value this superficial thing?
100%.
That's bizarre to me.
And then also, just to end this off for myself, there's a good price point watch that you go for the top of your range. Like there's a stinking $500, $800 Veyer, right? Epic. There's like I have one of the $1,500, or maybe it's $2,000, Nixon Supremacy, right? I value those more than, or would, because I was given the Nixon, but I guess I was given the Veyers too. But they're, they're me. I'm not faking anything.
Yeah, totally agree. Also, there is a bigger conversation just about supporting the fraudulent industry that I think is problematic as well.
Yep.
Now, on a different note, we've kind of talked in the past about lab-grown diamonds, and which I will never buy a real diamond again, like a natural diamond
Yeah.
again, because that market I feel like was completely manufactured and faked scarcity to create higher prices,
Thanks
all
to
that kind of
beer.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And now the fact that they can manufacture them in a lab and they're no different than the naturally existing diamond and prices are all coming down, I'm like, I will never buy a real diamond again in my life.
No
But
need.
I will also not pretend that the or that the lab grown one is natural. I will never give my wife a diamond gift and pretend like it's worth 10 times the lab grown price, you know?
You're cheapening your wife at that point.
Exactly. So we're all doing it on the up and up is the difference.
Yes.
Don't lie to yourself. Barrel or not, coming a news story coming out of Hawaii where 3 city lifeguards at Ala Moana were caught drinking on the job and
Dun, dun.
suspended without pay. This happened last Friday during a severe weather incident. The lifeguard towers were shuttered that day due to hazardous conditions from the Kona low storm, but the beaches were still open, and personnel were directed to seek safe shelter but be available for emergencies. And 3 of these lifeguards started boozing it, and then they got tested and busted. So,
Oh,
barrel or not, drinking on the job.
depends on the job. Of course, I'm gonna say any bartender, barrel. You're sitting there, don't get drunk, obviously, but who wants a super stiff bartender?
The owner.
Owner does, theoretically, but the people at the bar are, generally intoxicated to some level. And so the rapport that intoxicated people have, right? Your bartender, you want to be not on the bottom of that level, but somewhere in the level. So I'm going to say bartender, barrel, and generally not barrel,
Podcaster.
barrel. I'm going to say no. You and I experimented with this, right? If this actually worked, I at least would have continued. If I would have said, I'm funnier, I'm better, I'm all of it. No, I listened. I mean, I didn't even really listen, but I just knew full on. The times you and I have done a boozy podcast, that is like, it's just a nonsense gobbledygook one.
It is funny to think we just self-monitored because we have done it a few times. I mean, the reality is we're usually podcasting in the morning, but the few times we've done it in the evening, we've tried with drink, and both of us, without having any discussion, didn't try it again after the fact.
No. I mean, I think, and dear listener, I would be curious as to your opinion, but the shows that we have had some drinks on, I've always thought that was dumb at the end. Like, it wasn't like funny drunk talk dumb. It was just like purely dumb.
Yeah. It's funny to think the bartender analogy that you just gave, there is really something there too. People drinking want to communicate with other people who are drinking.
Totally.
If there's one sober person in the group dynamic, conversational
Kills the vibe.
dynamic, it throws off the whole vibe.
Completely. Like, that's why I think it's almost should be a requirement for the bartender to have, like, they should come with a breathalyzer to the bartender. And if the bartender is not blowing, 0.06, he's got to get home. But if he's not blowing a 0.06, then he's gonna get fined. Sorry.
It's funny. Like if there's a group of 5 and only one person is drinking, I don't feel like that disrupts the group dynamic as much. But if there's a group of 5 and 4 are drinking and one isn't, it disrupts the dynamic.
Completely. Yeah. Bartender's got to booze. And I think I would bet the restaurant owner would feel that a boozy bartender, it's going to lead to, I don't know, problems monetarily. I think your sales go up. A boozy person is a pushy person usually. And like, come on, guys, let's have another. Who's having another? Who's having another? That's what the boozy bartender gets you. Money.
There's a law of diminishing returns here.
0.06.
There is a certain level that the bartender can do exactly what you're talking about. And then once they go past that, they forget to charge people. They start giving away drinks for free because they get a bigger tip, all that sort of stuff.
No, the bartender, it has to be like, what was the movie where they stayed drunk all day for as long as they could?
Interstellar.
Did you ever see it? It was like a something day. They all had to have breathalyzers and they all had to stay. They figured out exactly what level of booziness you're totally happy, but you're like totally functional. And they would stay at that level all day.
No,
It was yeah, it's a funny movie.
I didn't see it.
Very funny. I'll find the title.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on. Final barrel or not. Cliff diving.
Did you do some cliff diving in Nicaragua?
I did not, but there was tragedy actually struck over the weekend in Hawaii where a man was cliff diving and he found himself in trouble. He was 26 years old, cliff diving on the Big Island at a spot called the End of the World. And the dive itself did not kill him, but he got basically stuck at sea. So like the water was really choppy, it was windy. He dove in, had trouble getting back. So somebody else, a firefighter, former Navy personnel, Ian Kowalczyk, I think is the guy's name, jumped in and tried to help him, but was unable to. The cliff diver ended up taking on water, like he started swallowing water and he was breathing it in. Eventually, the paramedics arrived, got him to the beach, but he was pronounced dead on the scene. And I was like, man, if the fall doesn't get you, something else might. And cliff diving, I don't see the payoff in it at this phase in my life. The thrill is gone. Like, I don't see any upside to it whatsoever.
I hear you, but so this is one of the things in life where cliff diving is one of the most fun things as a high schooler, college, stuff like that, right? Like you're at a body of water that has cliffs to climb to jump off into the water, like water's deep, and I've never been a crazy like, okay, you got to get a running start off the thing in order to clear the boulders sticking out, But the cliff dives where it's basically straight, water's deep, you're not worried about breaking your neck, nor are you worried about falling, hitting the wall on the way down. Super fun, right? And I totally hear you that at this stage in my life, it's like, ooh, the thought of climbing and jumping is just like, but shouldn't we fight against the dying light? Like, shouldn't you just say, yep, I ain't going to let age take me down here. I'm going to beat you.
Yeah, but I don't think that's this. I don't think this is fighting against the dying light, because when I look back at my 20s when I was doing it, or last time I probably did it, I don't think it was that thrilling even then. I think it was like peer pressure, people saying it's going to be fun, but it's like there wasn't a lot of fun for me in it.
The problem here is, though, you are at a lake a couple years from now, 4 years from now. You're at a Lake Mead in Nevada. For some unknown reason, you're there. There's cliff jumping happening. Dad's jumping off. Austin looks over at you. You got to go. It's one of those things. I remember my dad jumping off the rock at Powers River in Oregon and thinking, wow, like it's one of those things I think you have to do as a dad. And if you don't do it as a dad, when your kid's watching, maybe you'll never get into the situation. And maybe you can, now that you're aware of it, you can try to avoid the situation. But as a dad, you have to go in front of your son.
If you say there's zero risk of any injury at all, sure.
There's always some risk, but like minimal risk.
The maximum risk in this scenario that you're painting is a belly flop.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say 30 feet and just a drop.
So at a 30-foot drop, you still risk a slap. You risk that slapping against the water. If you've ever hit your nuts with that slap, I've done it even just from wiping out on a wave where it's just the exact wrong angle. It is like, that's reason alone to not mess with this.
But I'm telling you, if you look bad, if Austin looks at you and says, I see these other people jumping off, I see these other men jumping off, I see my dad shaking his head no here. Seeing jump, seeing him stand. It's going to rot like a seed will be planted that dad's not tough.
Peer pressured by my 8-year-old son.
Yep.
And then when I end up breaking a leg, I can blame him.
Yep,
Like, hey,
exactly.
you shamed me into this.
Yep.
So you cliff diving or not?
I'm cliff diving.
Barrel on cliff dive?
Yeah, except that, man, those ones, like, I'm a barrel on if other people are doing it. Like, I'm a real sheep in this case. I'm a barrel if other people are doing it. But if it's like one, I don't need to prove I don't need to be the one that proves the point. If like nobody's doing it, somebody say, hey, you should jump off that. Or like the toughest dudes are jumping off it. I don't need to be the tough dude. But if just above the median is jumping off, then I have to jump off too.
I would love to know the age of the average cliff diver.
Yeah.
I
Remember what
bet
was such...
you average age has got to be below 25.
Yeah, I bet average age is 23.
Yeah, I bet so too. I bet precipitous drop off after your 30s.
Yep.
So, all right, I'm going no barrel on cliff diving. You could stick with barrel. We'll remain separated.
I'm going to have to.
All right. Well, redemption show. We're back on track. We'll be back on Friday as well on the grit.
Come
and
talk about Margaret River.
And yeah, we'll discuss Margaret River. And do we still have time for extra fine?
I sure do.
I do too. Okay, cool. If you want more and more salaciousness than the regular show, meet us over on Patreon right now. Patreon.com, search Extra Fine Grit. Until then.